Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with some more SFO Grimhammer showcase videos. The newest patch, Storm of Chaos, is dropping on the 27th of January, which is not too long now, and until then I'll be showcasing the changes to each of the factions to see if there's anything that might pique your interest. Now, we're almost done with the Game 1 races now. Today and tomorrow I think is the last of them, and then we'll be moving on to Game 2 and then finally Game 3 races. But with that being said, we're going to start looking towards the Greenskins today, as they're in a fairly good place. Keep in mind that they obviously got a really good rework with the Grom the Paunch. But let's get started, shall we? We're going to start off with Grimgor Ironhide, as obviously he is the faction leader, essentially, so it makes sense to start with him, and his faction effects are as follows. Grimgor is the best and receives faction-wide bonuses every 6 levels. This will be in the form of dilemmas which will pop up naturally into your campaign. Unlocks recruitment of all heroes from the very beginning. Waaagh has a chance to contain Black Orcs. Attribute causes fear for all Orc units rank 7 and above. Very, very useful, especially if you're going to actually do a really big war. Armor plus 10 for boys, big guns, and Black Orc units, and finally unique unit Immortals. Yeah, it's not just the attached banner to a unit anymore. Moving on to the Lord effects, we have the following. Income from post-battle loot plus 25%. Armor plus 10 for Black Orc units and Lord's Army. Leadership plus 10 for Black Orc units and Lord's Army. There's actually a fair amount of Black Orc units nowadays. And finally, army ability is Grimgor's Waaagh instead of the standard Waaagh. Moving on to Azhag, we have the following faction effects. Crown of Sorcery grants random missions against other factions with unique effects and followers. So this is going to keep you busy throughout your campaign, which is kind of nice as his campaign is a little bit basic at the moment. Diplomatic relations plus 50 with vampire counts and Arc in the Black. Waaagh has a chance to contain a wyvern. Research rate plus 40%, a very big boost over there at the very beginning. And army ability, Face of Death. I'll let you discover that yourself. Your Lord effects are as follows. Character Aura Leadership effect plus 10. Leadership Aura size plus 25%. Spell Aspect of the Dread Knight. Spell Spirit Leech. And then finally, army ability Azhag's Waaagh, which replaces the standard Waaagh. This is what you're already used to in vanilla ever since their rework came into effect. Alright, now we're going to move on to Skarsnik, and his faction effects are as follows. Can only recruit Orc units from Karak 8 Peaks. Technology research rate minus 40% until Karak 8 Peaks is conquered. Yep. You're going to suffer a little bit there, but you're going to be mostly focusing on goblins that you already have access to at the beginning. Masterful Ambush Stance. Skarsnik and Night Goblin Warboss increase vigor loss reduction and replenishment rate of Night Goblin units in their armies per character rank. So this means that you're going to be focusing a lot on Night Goblins, and well, I mean, it kind of makes sense. It's Skarsnik after all. You would be surprised how many people start just mixing in with normal goblins. Like, ew, who would do that, right? Anyways, hero action cost minus 50% and receive plus 100% experience. Upkeep and recruitment cost minus 20% for goblin units. Waaagh has a chance to contain Doom Divers, which is great. When it comes to the Lord effects, we have the following. Enables lightning strike battles when reinforcements are present. Growth plus 100 in local province, which is pretty good, especially since you're going to be dealing with Fulgrim at the very beginning. This is going to help you just get a little bit stronger. Hero action success chance plus 5% for all characters faction wide, and charge bonus plus 10 for Night Goblins, Greg Hoppers, units in Lord's Army, and obviously lastly, changing the Waaagh to Skarsnik's Waaagh. But overall, very, very good bonuses. Now on to Wurrzag, my personal favourite greenskin character. We have the following faction effects. Attribute, perfect vigor for all units when above 75%, own armies faction-wide in enemy territory. Waaagh has a chance to contain Savage Orcs. Attrition, minus 25% casualties suffered from all attrition. Enemy hero action success chance, minus 25%. Unique generic Lord, Savage Orc Warboss. This means that you'll actually have Savage Orcs leading your Savage Orc armies, and a unique unit for the Savage Rogue Idol. When it comes to Lord effects, you have the following. Upkeep, minus 20% for Savage Orc units, Lord's Army. Recruitment cost, minus 20% for Savage Orc units, Lord's Army. Physical resistance, 15% for Savage Orc units and Lord's Army. And finally, changing the Waaagh to Wurrzag's Waaagh from the standard Waaagh. And finally, Grom the Paunch, we have the following faction effects. Grom cooks dishes for various units and faction bonuses. This is from vanilla. Diplomatic relations minus 100 with high elves. This is going to be a bit of a problem with Ulf 1 being so close to your start. War has a chance to contain pump wagons. Global recruitment duration minus 1 turn for goblin units. And finally, recruit rank plus 2 for chariot and pump wagon units. When we go to the Lord effects, we have the following: leadership plus 10 when fighting against elves in Lord's army. Physical resistance plus 10% for goblin units for Lord's army. Upkeep minus 20% for chariot and pump wagon units in Lord's army. And finally, just the whole usual replacing of the Waaagh to Grom's Waaagh. When it comes to technology for the orcs, there's a few cool changes here. You see, the basic stuff has been updated just to bring it in line with SFO in general, but you also have access to a rather large secondary branch, well, tree in general really, and what you'll need is certain buildings for it. Don't you worry, we'll go to that in just a second, but these bonuses are quite good and obviously they'll help you out for later game. They will cost. Keep in mind that it is tied to your scrap, and it's not that hard to get scrap if you're just constantly fighting. I know it depends on the greenskin player, but really you should be aggressive. I mean, this is what greenskins do. Construction is generally the same, however you will start to notice if you move further to the right, you will have something called big stuff. And yeah, these are very powerful buildings, which will have a lot of bonuses. Sometimes they are all adjacent to adjacent provinces. Sometimes they can be faction-wide, like extra, research rate and stuff. And yeah, this is just to add in a little bit more punch to your greenskin forces. Like I said before, these are also tied to your other research tree too, so it does help to build these up. You will want it naturally anyway, but there's links to it, right? So it's multi-purpose, which is always good. I love seeing buildings which are multi-purpose in tied with technology if it makes sense, not something that needs to be in your main tech tree though. There is a rebalance of your war meter, as you can see here, and there's a lot more bonuses. Granted, there's a lot of negatives too if you're on the lower end of that spectrum, but as you start getting higher and higher, as you obviously start getting into more fights, which, yeah, again, you're a greenskin, yeah, you're going to get loads of big bonuses. It's going to make sure that you're expanding at a faster rate. It kind of gives you that feeling of the lore version of WAAAGH, where, as you get bigger and bigger, you're going to get more forces coming to you, hence the really big amounts of growth, the extra experience gain. Just everything there is pretty cool. I like the theming. It just makes me think of going back into the lore like Waaagh Gorbad, for example. Alright, now we're going to go into the best change for the greenskins, and I don't care who says otherwise. This is the Savage Orc Warboss, which gives you a new lord option. You can choose to have it melee focused, or if you want, you've got access to the lore of the big war. Yeah, it's a lord option which is desperately needed if you're going to play as Wurrzag, as now you can actually theme Savage Orc armies, and I think that's really, really important, considering that that's a really big part of, the lore of Savage Orcs. They don't really get run by other orcs or even goblins. So I love the idea because it's thematic and it's just great. Now you can have armies for pretty much all the different types of greenskins. Well, not all of them because you don't have a Black Orc Warboss, but you never know for the future. You never know. And finally, when it comes to campaign, there's been changes to the upgrade system, so if you're going to be upgrading your units for scrap, it's going to cost a bit more. However, it's going to be better benefits all around, so this makes your orcs and goblins much, much better if you start upgrading them. Obviously, later in campaign, it's probably best to do so, as early on, you're probably going to be losing some units, especially if you're playing as, say, for example, Grimgor right now, and you're dealing with Kolek at the very beginning. Okay, we're going on to the unique units now. We have the Immortals. These are exclusive to Grimgor. Surprise, surprise. I mean, it's a big part of his lore, and they look cool. Obviously, they're quite strong. Dual sword infantry too, which is very, very, very cool for Black Orcs. This is the thing, and I've said it before, there's certain units in Warhammer Fantasy on the tabletop which just didn't have variants because they had all the gear together at the very same time, and when you had a new round of combat, that would then, you would choose what weapon you were using, either in your round or your enemy's round of combat. It was a pretty fun system. Sadly, that can't happen in Total War normally, but you've got another type of Black Orc unit, which just furthers this. This is Black Orcs with shields, and they aren't exclusive to Grimgor. They're actually usable by everyone. A pretty strong unit. I mean, it's Black Orcs with shield. This is like your ultimate front line, and goddamn, do they look cool, right? The idea is just having some options, which is obviously always really good, and we're missing a lot of greenskin variants in vanilla. It's kind of weird, but then again, we've only really had, 2 DLCs? Forest goblins are coming into effect now, and yeah, Forest Goblins. There's nothing special about them, it's just a starter unit. It's just the sake of having the variety, which is very important for greenskins. So they're anti-large, they've got Vanguard, they've got Poison too, so they're actually fairly decent for what they are. It's more of the case again, you know, having the different types of greenskins, even if you're not going to use it, it's always nice to have. I'm not too keen on Forest Goblins myself, but I know some people who are, so this should be big for you. The next unit is the Bone Clubber Savage Orcs, and yeah, it's Savage Orcs with great weapons. They're basically, yeah, they're big uns, but the idea is just to have weapon variety, so again, you can theme a little bit more if you want to go full Savage Orc. Like, for example, I tend to try and do full Savage Orc builds, because it's more fun. If I'm going to be playing as Wurrzag, I want full Savage Orcs. So yeah, overall, good stats all around, you know. High physical resistance, they're going to do a lot of damage because it's got a great weapon. And just in general, I mean, they're just cool, man. I love Savage Orcs. I've always loved them. It's an army I've always wanted on the tabletop. Another big unit is the Colossal Squig. And, I mean, there's not much to talk about. It's a very, very big squig. Rip Forge World, they actually just recently got removed from rotation. But anyways, you know, 130 speed, it's incredibly fast, armor-piercing melee, anti-infantry, they do a lot of damage, plus it's a big squig. I mean, squigs are just generally cool, aren't they? And there's so many different types of squigs that we still don't even have in-game. It's a slow process. It's a slow process. And finally, for the last unique unit, we have the Savage Rogue Idol. This is exclusive to Wurrzag, which, Venrus, if you're listening, I'm loving the attention that Wurrzag is getting. This is really, really good. But yeah, it's a Savage Rogue Idol. It's going to be very, very similar, almost identical to a standard one, but the idea is a Savage one for a Savage Orc army. Plus, you know, the mask and stuff makes it look cool. I guess it's just generally that. But yeah, the greenskins have always been in a good place. Let's be very, very honest. Ever since the Grom the Paunch DLC came out and fixed the greenskins, which, fun fact, that's when Total War Warhammer 2 actually got to its, like, proper height in popularity. Prior to that, it was just DLC came out, there was a spike, and that's it. But Total War Warhammer 2 with the Grom the Paunch actually made it so well known. It had its peak in players too, I believe. So yeah, like, the greenskins are in a very good place. All it's needed is just some touching up here and there. I think that Venrus has done a pretty good job with that. I'm pretty happy. I've been enjoying playing as Wurrzag, but then again, it's Wurrzag, so I'm just going to enjoy Wurrzag anyway. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Venrus will be checking out this video. The SFO team will be checking out stuff. So your questions, your feedback, all that type of stuff, always very important to the SFO team. With all that being said, I'll see you very, very soon, and there'll be a second video today, so don't you worry.